Hello, this is Peter Cohen. When I first started rethinking my understanding of what we used to call the Mideast conflict, one of the first things that caught my attention was the fact that Israeli government officials and spokespeople were very obviously and clearly lying. And today, I think we're starting to see this realization take hold on a scale that at that time I couldn't have possibly imagined. We're seeing people in the U.S. right wing take on and demolish these lies. We're seeing people like Piers Morgan suddenly turning around and catching Israeli officials in their lies and completely dismantling them. Whereas just a short time ago they were basically running cover for Israel. So I wanted to give an example of a typical Hasbara Lie that happened to me just today. So Hasbara is the Hebrew word for explaining. It's Israeli propaganda. It's the way they try to get people to look at facts selectively and see the facts in the way the Israeli government wants you to see them. So this morning I was awakened to at least 3 DMs from sort of fanatical Israel apologists, all with the same video. A video of people looting a warehouse, and all with some version of the words, "You see, this is a Hamas warehouse. There's plenty of food in Gaza, but Hamas is stealing the food and hoarding it, and now the people have broken into the Hamas warehouse, and they're taking the food back from Hamas." Okay. There was nothing in the video to show that this was a Hamas warehouse. There was no sign in Arabic, the Hamas warehouse, or the Hamas flag, or anything. Zero, nothing. And it didn't make any logical sense to me that if Hamas were stealing food, that they would put it in a warehouse above ground, when the Israeli government has made it very clear that they're going to level every single structure in Gaza. So we know that Hamas has tunnels. So if they have any food to store, they would almost certainly be doing it below ground, all right, and not in a warehouse. So it didn't make logical sense. There was no visible proof. And I asked all 3 of these people, please send me credible independent confirmation. That's the journalistic standard. At least if you make a claim, you need to support it with at least 2 credible independent sources confirming it. So they all sent me links, and these were all links from organizations I had never heard of. And when I started Googling these organizations, I started seeing that one had an office in Tel Aviv and one had an office in Jerusalem, and et cetera, et cetera. They were all up to their necks in Israel in one way or another. And so they weren't credible. They were completely unknown, and they weren't independent. They were clearly linked to one party in a conflict. All right. And then when I went back and looked at the actual news, what was on the news, so I saw the BBC, the French news, German news, they were all saying it was a UN warehouse. People had broken into and looted a UN warehouse, and the World Food Program came out with a statement saying this was our warehouse. People have done this because they're starving, because Israel has been starving them since March 2nd, nearly 3 months ago. I'm paraphrasing now. And what Israel needs to do is open up the crossings and let us bring food to the people. And this won't happen. All right? So when I went back to the Israel apologist fanatics and told them this, well, one of them called me a hateful and an anti-Semite. All right? And so, all right, the ad hominem attack, when there's no bullets left in your gun, there's always the ad hominem. The second one, sent me another video about Hamas using human shields, and they started sending me all kinds of other things. And I said, wait a second, we're not talking. Well, let's talk about human shields later, but first let's finish with this thing about the warehouse. You know, this is another very typical Hasbara trick. They, you know, if something isn't working, they just switch. They move to another assertion, another claim, a false accusation, and they just pile them on until you can't even. There's no way to have a serious discussion anymore. They just keep going. And then the third one, I believe, said something like, well, it's all Hamas's fault anyway because they shouldn't have attacked on October 7th. So, all right, Israel is starving 2 million people, and it's Hamas's fault because they attacked on October 7th. And if Israel starves 2 million people now, it's not their fault, it's Hamas's fault. Okay. So, you know, this is kind of almost like a walk through the Hasbara mind and the way these people think. And basically, it's teleological thinking. They don't start with the facts and then work from there to conclusions. The conclusion is already there. The conclusion is Israel is right, Palestinians are wrong, etc. And everybody who criticizes Israel is wrong. And then the facts are judged by the level to which they get you to that conclusion. And one more thing I could say about this is that you see that these are multi-leveled narratives, because what you have is a micro narrative. So the micro narrative is the Hamas warehouse, but the macro narrative is Hamas is stealing the food. Israel isn't starving anyone. It's Hamas that's doing it because they're taking all the food. The food is getting in. We know the food isn't getting in, but whatever. The food is getting in. There's plenty of food, but Hamas is stealing the food. So Israel needs to kick out all of the aid organizations that have allowed Hamas to take the food, that are all infiltrated by Hamas, and replace them with people that it controls. Okay. So there's a micro narrative and the macro narrative. Now, another thing that's interesting about this is the timing. Why is this happening now? Well, yesterday was the opening of the grand debut of the new Israeli supported aid delivery mechanism that was supposed to replace the UN and everyone else. And of course, it was a total disaster. And I mean, I don't know if people were killed or many people were injured, at the very least, scores of people. But it was just absolutely horrible, terrible optics, the worst, and it was absolutely panned. You know, this was an opening that was completely panned, and all of the international organizations have refused any part in this. And the leader, the guy who was in charge of the organization, quit the day before they opened, saying that he felt that he was unable to comply with international humanitarian law, basically, and including neutrality under these circumstances. And so this is the situation, and of course with the mounting condemnation and everything else, this is the situation in which this is all happening. So we need to bring Hamas back into the picture as the sort of the real villain. If anybody's starving, it's because of Hamas. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. This is just a little tiny piece of Hasbara. I mean, I don't know to what extent this story got a lot of play, the Hasbara story about it being Hamas, but it's just an example of the way these people think. And I guess one last thing you could say about it is that they've really learned from their masters. This is really the I'm in Brazil. This is a really good example of the big lie. It's pure Goebbels. You know, repeat a lie often enough, and it becomes the truth. And now we can see how Israel has been able to do this for so long, because they would repeat the lies, and nobody would challenge them. But now that they're being challenged, it's so clear that there's nothing backing up these stories. So, this is just one tiny example, but once you start looking for it, you'll see it everywhere. Free Palestine.